And now to the big story developing in Africa, the coup in Gabon. We told you about this yesterday. This is a Central African nation. For the uninitiated, this is where Gabon is located on the map. It has a population of just 2.3 million people, plus a lot of natural resources. Over the decades, Gabon's minerals have made it wealthy, or at least made some people there very, very rich, like the Bongo family. President Ali Bongo was put under house arrest yesterday. This was minutes after an election result was announced. The election took place on Saturday. The result came out on Wednesday morning. Bongo was declared the winner, and that's when he was locked up. He sent out this video after he was detained.
I'm Ali Bongo Ondimba, President of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise, For the people here have arrested me. And my family, my son is somewhere, my wife is in another place, and I'm at the residence. Right now, I'm in the residence, and nothing is happening. I don't know what's going on. So I'm calling you to make noise, really. I'm thanking you. Thank you.
Make a noise, he says. We'll come back to this. And this is quite a story, so listen carefully. The Bongo family has been in power in Gabon for about 55 years. The detained president, the one you just heard from, is Ali Bongo. His father was Omar Bongo. He was president for 42 years. He died in the year 2009. That's when his son, Ali Bongo, took over. And since then, he served 2 terms as president. He was about to begin a 3rd term. He won the election on Saturday, or won the Saturday election. The result came out on Wednesday morning. Now, 2 terms in 14 years may seem odd, but that's how it is in Gabon. The presidential term lasts for 7 years in this country. Also, they do not have term limits anymore. You can serve as president for any number of terms, really. So Ali Bongo would have started his 3rd term had the military not removed him. But they have. And they've installed a new leader in his place, this man.
All the commanders-in-chief and chiefs of staff, as well as the generals in 2nd sections of Gabonese Republic, were present for the meeting. General Brice Oligui Nguema was unanimously appointed chairman of the Committee for the Transition and Restoration of Institutions, president of the transition.
General Brice Oligui Nguema. He's the president of the transition and an expected choice. He was in the news yesterday too, seen being lifted up by cheering soldiers. They were urging him to take over. General Nguema is a former head of Gabon's Presidential Guard. It's an elite regiment that protects the president, identifiable by their green berets, the same Presidential Guard that also put Ali Bongo under house arrest. Now, General Nguema was their leader. He spoke to the press yesterday. He said that Bongo has been retired. He also justified the coup by saying that Bongo was ill, that he was weak after he suffered a stroke in 2018. And he said that the election itself was not conducted properly, which is why Gabon's army had decided to take action. Apparently, Bongo will still enjoy his rights, but only as a normal citizen, not as a president. And they say he will not be harmed. Is that because the general doesn't want to hurt his own family? Why do I say this? Because the new president, the General Nguema, is related to the Bongo family. He's apparently a cousin of Ali Bongo. But then again, that may not mean very much. The Bongo family is very large. The late former president, Omar Bongo, had more than 30 children. According to some reports, more than 50. So the general may not be all that close to his numerous cousins, but blood is not the only thing that he shares with the Bongos. He's also been accused of nepotism and corruption. He served in the Presidential Guard after graduating from a military academy in Morocco. In 2009, when Ali Bongo became president, the general was sent on diplomatic missions to Morocco and Senegal. He also happens to be a millionaire. Between 2015 and 2018, he bought 3 houses in the US, in the state of Maryland, and they were purchased for more than $1 million in cash. When asked about these properties, the general told the press that a person's privacy should be respected. Unless military service in Gabon rakes in millions of dollars, how do you afford million-dollar properties in cash? As of today, these are all allegations and they do not seem to matter to the people of Gabon very much. They look quite happy with this turn of events. Many were seen celebrating the fall of the Bongo family.
Now is the time for change. 60 years of dictatorship have ended. Amen.
It's August 30, no longer August 17th. Now this is the Independence Day. The army has freed our country. We are free. We have the right to be free and to express ourselves the way we want. Because we didn't know that we could be freed. But today we are free.
Let me take you back to that statement that Ali Bongo made from under house arrest. He asked people to make some noise. Well, as you can see, they are making a noise, just not the kind that he'd like to hear. They say a man's reach should exceed his grasp. In other words, you should dream beyond your limits. That's what French President Emmanuel Macron seems to be doing. He is all set to strike a deal with Fiji, a security deal. The Fijian cabinet has already approved it. The next step is signatures. And why does the security deal, what does it cover? What does the deal cover? A whole lot of things. Joint defense research, training, logistical support and emergency assistance. This deal has been in the pipeline since 2016. Domestic politics came in between. Back then, Fiji had a pro-China leader. He took military vehicles and vessels from Beijing. But the current leader is not pro-China and he is pivoting back to the West. But why France? Why not sign a deal with the US or Australia? Because of Fiji's location. Fiji shares a maritime boundary with two regions, New Caledonia and Wallis and Futuna. These are French overseas territories, meaning they're part of France. The people living there are French citizens. And this location gives France an advantage. In the past too, they've helped Fiji. Let me tell you what happened in the year 2004. Massive rains lashed the archipelago. Several Fijian fishermen were lost at sea. France was the first to offer them help. They had naval aircraft stationed in New Caledonia. The planes were deployed to look for the lost fishermen. It may not sound like much, but for a country of 900,000 people, such gestures are important. Having said that, France is not alone. The Pacific Islands have become a new political battleground. All major powers want security deals with them. China has won with the Solomon Islands. The US has won with Papua New Guinea. And now France has won with Fiji. I know the list seems a bit off. Why are France and the US not combining efforts? Because France is a Pacific power in its own right. Around 1.6 million French citizens live in the Indo-Pacific. Their exclusive economic zone is huge. It spans around 9 million square kilometers. So France is not a passerby in the Pacific. It is a regional player. And President Macron is keen on projecting his presence. He visited the Pacific Islands in the month of July. He warned of a new imperialism in the region. Was he talking about the US or China? Well, perhaps both. Macron says he can offer an alternative to the Pacific Islands, one where their sovereignty is not challenged. It's a pretty ambitious goal, but not a surprising one. Macron has always been keen on foreign policy. At first, his ambitions were helped by luck. Britain left the European Union in 2020, so Europe's big three became the big two, France and Germany. Now, within these two, the top dog was clear. Germany's Angela Merkel. She had been chancellor since 2005, so there was no question of Macron superseding her. But in 2021, Merkel also resigned, and suddenly Emmanuel Macron became the tallest leader in Europe. He was talking to Putin, he was bad-mouthing NATO, he was reaching out to China, so Macron's policies came to represent Europe, at least for a while. And his plan was an interesting one. Macron knew that France alone could not influence global politics. It's only the 7th largest economy in the world and its share in global GDP is just 2.1%. So what did Emmanuel Macron do? He tweaked his vision. He thought if France cannot be a world leader, then perhaps Europe can. Just look at all his proposals. Macron has been pitching for a European army. He's also been arguing for a European foreign policy, one that is separate from the US. In April this year, he reiterated this vision. Macron said Europe cannot be America's vassal state. So why didn't this plan succeed? because his domestic support was not solid. Last year, he lost his majority in the French parliament. He also faced multiple protests. First, over his pension reforms, then over racial tensions and immigration. So Macron could not pursue his global ambitions as much. He was tied down at home. Nonetheless, his achievements are impressive. He rallied Europe after Russia's invasion. He increased French presence in the Indian Ocean. And now he has a security deal in the Pacific. The setbacks, though, have come in Africa. Military leaders are staging coup after coup in former French colonies. All of them have the same punching bag, France. As for the European experiment, there is still time. Macron's term ends in 2027. If he can sort out his domestic situation, he could have another shot. And now to a story that is making all the buzz. Canada's Ontario had a bee emergency. 5 million bees fell off a truck near Toronto. 5 million bees. You can imagine the chaos that ensued. Bees and their hives were scattered over a 400-meter radius. Some clustered on nearby cars and mailboxes. Others were angrily buzzing around. The driver of the truck took the biggest hit. He was stung more than 100 times. Beekeepers were called in for help, and they reportedly said the scene was nothing like they'd ever seen before. Our next report tells you more.
It's time to spill the bees. Pardon the pun. A black cloud was seen looming over the Canadian province of Ontario. Wait, not in the literal sense, of course. What you see is a swarm of bees. Here's what happened. Beehives were being transported in a truck. They were being held in place with straps. During the journey, these straps came loose.
I believe the strap somehow came loose or loosened and the crates fell off of that.
Hives slipped free and chaos ensued.
I woke up to my wife saying there's something going on outside, there's all kinds of bees or something.
5 million bees fell off the truck. The scene was surreal. Bees and their hives were scattered all over the place. They were spread over a 400-meter radius. Bees were clustering over cars and motorcycles. Some wouldn't let go of the mail posts they were clinging to. Beekeepers say the clustering bees were the younger ones. They came together to seek safety. The older ones, on the other hand, were wreaking havoc. Because not only were they older, but also angrier. So they were buzzing around. But can you really blame them? After all, being homeless would make anyone angry. The truck driver had to bear the brunt of this. He was stung over 100 times. Soon after the accident, the police were on the ground. They were the first responders. But in a hilarious turn of events, they couldn't even step outside their cars. They didn't have protective suits. Eventually, beekeepers were called for help. They released smoke, which subdued the panicked bees into a state of lethargy. Social media messages urged people to stay away from the area and to keep their windows closed.
It's typically never good news when you get a call from the police, and I'm just glad, obviously no humans were hurt in this situation.
No human was injured, but the same couldn't be said of the bees. A few hundred didn't survive the accident. After a few hours, most of the bees found their hives. Beekeepers say there's still hope for those who didn't.
They communicate by smell, by sight, and all that. So they will start to communicate in those ways and figure out their way home. So hopefully sooner rather than later.
We never thought we'd say this, but next time you're out for a long drive, don't forget to strap your bees.
And now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. In Florida, Hurricane Idalia left behind a trail of destruction and debris, destroying houses and entire towns, in fact. In South Africa, a blaze engulfed an entire apartment block in Johannesburg. More than 70 people have been killed. And there will be no monkey business at this year's G20. New Delhi has installed cutouts of langurs to deal with rogue monkeys ahead of the summit. Finally, we're taking you back in history. On this day in 1997, Princess Diana died in a car crash in Paris. She was being pursued by paparazzi when the car spun out of control and crashed. Diana was taken to hospital, but she succumbed to her injury. She was only 36-year-old at the time. We're leaving you with this. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.